Well, hello and welcome to episode 90 of In the Growth Space. I'm David McGlennon and I'm your host. And if you're new to the podcast, I just want to share here at the beginning what this podcast is really all about. And what I'm about here in this podcast is being focused on and exploring and examining what it takes to grow and what it means to grow, and then hearing stories of how others have grown. And that growth, of course, relates to every aspect of our lives, whether it's our business or our professional life, growth around our personal life, and maybe that's around our finances or our health or our relationships. And it could be growth around our leadership of our teams and what that feels like or what that looks like. And really, what this ultimately means is that when we grow, we leave our comfort zone. And that comfort zone is that place where we've been subconsciously programmed to know how to do what we're doing in any area of our life. And when we do that, that's when we enter that space, that place that I call the growth space. And it's that space where we feel uncomfortable and where we want to retreat back to the safety of what we know. But if we want to truly grow, it means busting through the terror barrier and feeling the discomfort and acting anyway. So it's really good when we break through those barriers. On today's episode, I just wanted to have a conversation around another experience with someone who came to Turning Point. I know, you just thought you were going to get rid of me on Turning Point and stop hearing about it, didn't you? Well, the reason that I wanted to hear these stories and have you hear these stories really is because they're all so unique, and each one has taken something different from the experience. And then, of course, it really is all about you taking their perspective, their perception, their learnings, and turning it into how you yourself could make progress in your own life and in your own leadership. And sometimes that's just awakening some place or some part of your own awareness. And so today I'm talking with two people who have, quite frankly, been on the podcast before. We're talking with Eryn Eddy, who's the CEO of So Worth Loving and So Worth Loving Creative. And we're also talking to my good friend and collaboration partner, Andy Hall. Now, Andy, as you know from listening to episode 88, just 2 episodes ago, is my collaboration partner from Turning Point. And we caught both Andy and Eryn in the middle of some travel. Well, hey, Eryn and Andy, welcome to In the Growth Space. I'm really grateful that you're both here today. This is kind of a new experience for us here on the podcast to have two guests, but I think it's really cool because it's super appropriate, and we're really grateful to have you both here today.
Thanks, David. Great to see you again, and hi, Eryn. It's great to be with you again.
Oh, it's so good. I feel like I just saw y'all.
You did.
I did.
You did. Absolutely. Well, and I think that's what, let's go there first, because we all saw each other at Turning Point, the retreat that Andy and I put together and put on with, of course, Paul Martinelli. And I want to, Eryn, I want to get your perspective first, because I know that you attended and you were interested in the retreat. And I guess I kind of wonder why. What attracted you to, when I talked to you about it and told you that it was going to be in Atlanta and, a little bit about it, what was it that attracted you to the event?
That's a good question. I have been in the entrepreneurial space for, I guess, really growing up in that space with my family being entrepreneurs, and then me being one as well. And then, trying to find places in where you feel less alone in that journey is so important to the journey. And I felt like Turning Point would be a solution for that, for some of the things that I've been processing. And I know we'll unpack it further on in this conversation, but I had felt like I had hit some sort of ceiling in the way that I thought of myself, in my dreams, in my career, in my goals. And I was honestly really annoyed by myself. And they say you have to get annoyed by yourself to start changing. So I felt like this would be a really cool opportunity to be a part, because I've watched the videos that you had shared online and I had read about it. And I thought, this might be a solution to helping me unlock something, get past something, see future opportunity within my career, and feel less alone in the process. So yeah, so I guess that's where I saw Turning Point being an opportunity to help meet me in that thought process. And I knew that I would be probably less alone in some of the things I was struggling with as an entrepreneur.
And Eryn, can I ask you, in terms of bearing in mind that was, you could see there was a clear purpose for you of wanting to go. How did the experience match up against, what you were looking for?
Oh, the only expectation I had was that I was going to be around some really cool powerhouse people. And again, like feel maybe less alone in my journey. So I had no idea what to expect, like that I was going to be physically surrounded by, like what the presentations were going to be like. Was there going to be always speaking? Were there going to be breakouts? Was there going to be music? Was there not going to be? Like, I had no real expectation, I guess you should say, apart from like being able to read the agenda, but I had no expectation. So it exceeded past any sort of expectation that I had. I learned a lot about my inner critic and the thoughts that I think towards myself. And I was familiar with some of the books that Paul had spoke on and the quotes that you and David were sharing. Like the book, Think and Grow Rich, was something that I saw my grandma, I grew up with, seeing her just say, like, read this book. If you want to be successful in business, read this book, Eryn. Yeah. And
she's a very successful businesswoman, incredibly successful. And I have to say, she's a trailblazer too, because, in the era in which she was really in the height of her business, she was amazing. I mean, total trailblazer.
She really was. And she was surrounded by people like Jim Rohn and Sydney Marcus.
Wow.
And she was a female entrepreneur in the 70s and 80s, single mom of 2 boys. So, and she grew a multi-million-dollar furniture business. So when she tells me to read a book, I'm like, I will. So in some ways, I felt at home at this weekend, because it was things that I had been brought up in or had been around, or conversations that my family have had. And I brought my boyfriend, who has been in the ministry world the last 10 years of his life, but he's been a touring musician he's been in the music scene and started playing guitar when he was 8 and then started touring at 17. So he comes from a different musician upbringing, ministry upbringing too. So he was like, this is all so new to me, like these ways of thinking. And I'm like, they're not for me. And it was just so cool. Even him and I's conversations of like the way he has thought about your future dreams and goals and going after them and dreaming bigger and recognizing that you're limiting your capabilities. And there was a lot of rewiring some of my mindset of I'm limiting myself. And this environment is giving me space to break that off and expand my thinking.
Yeah. I love that. I love the fact that just by virtue of being in the room and being around like-minded people who are all wanting to expand their view of success and meaning for life. And I loved, one of the things that I personally love about Paul is he takes those books like Think and Grow Rich, and he's studied them for so long. And even like the Henry David Thoreau quote that we really dove deeply into. I mean, he's able to unpack those and really teach some of the key principles from that and what they really mean. And I think for me, I know just being around people like Paul and others that were in the room, it makes a big difference, because who you learn from really does make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess as you think about some of your key takeaways, or just maybe even some of the things that, you'd like to share with the audience about your growth journey through Turning Point, what are maybe one or two of those? I'd love to just hear.
Oh, gosh. I have so many, David.
So it's not just one or two, right? I love that response.
The man, I mean, I've already shared it like with probably 10 people in regards to talking about resentment and restriction and revenge. And that honestly was what has helped. That's the ceiling. That was my ceiling. So I went in there being like, I got a ceiling. I need to unlock something. Let's just put my boots on. I'm ready to do the work. Let's go. And when he started talking about you can't fully embrace your God-given desire dream and go after it and have a backpack of resentment towards whoever or how many others, and as much as I can logically share that, this person did this for this reason, and I was responding to this for this reason. Like I've been in therapy, I got mentors and a business coach. And I've talked about this stuff, but I've never really talked about, I've been able to rationalize and understand both sides, but I didn't realize I was carrying still just this residue of resentment that was towards people that played a part within my career. Honestly, for me, it was my actual career. I know some people there that attended, it could have been a dad, a mom, a spouse, maybe it was a business partner. But for me, I had 3 people that I did write down that I had to really process some stuff with my partner. That ends up being my boyfriend was there to just unpack more. So the resentment piece. What did y'all think about that? I'm sure you've unpacked that. Well, y'all have attended this before, but let's just pretend you didn't. And have y'all noticed about yourselves? Like, do you still, can you think of somebody that you're like, I have resentment towards still, I need to work through, that's kind of blocking me from moving forward? Does any of that resonate?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Eryn. It really is, because this is affected. The turning point that's just finished, even though David and I were part facilitating it with Paul. Clearly, we were participating in the same exercise as you were and the rest of the group were on Saturday evening, late into Saturday evening. And there's one significant person in my life that comes up every single time that we do that exercise, and that's my father. My father, I guess, like a lots of us, in our upbringing, has played a significant part in my upbringing, and that's where my resentment is. And it was interesting because I was talking to Karen over dinner last night about this exact subject, because she was participant and going through it for the first time, and she was asking me a similar question in terms of, what happens when you experience that exercise for the second or the third or the fourth time. And for me, what I found was the benefit of that is I believe I've come up with strategies in the past to deal with it, but it creeps back in. Mm-hmm. It creeps back in. So it's, when was the last turning point that I went to? I think it was 2016. And as soon as I'm facing into that exercise and we start talking about that those 3 R's, that's the person that always pops up. And in the 5 or 6 years since the last time, it's like the strategy that I put in place. What am I trying to say here? It fades away. You don't stick to so you can. It's probably typical, like almost workshop syndrome, right? You experience a life-changing moment and you go, right, I'm going to act and I'm going to do something. And I have a strength of doing that, and I do. But I act and I do something for a period of time, and then it's like, it's slowly but surely that you don't do it as often. And I realized I hadn't really worked that strategy at all, probably for the last couple of years. And surprise, surprise, there's that person front of mind again. That whole energy, that whole negative energy around that. It's just like that brilliant line of Paul's, when he goes to see Dr. Lee. If you don't think you can be stuck in one aspect of your life, right, and not be stuck elsewhere. So
yeah.
Yes, I really resonate with that, Andy, because like I said, I've gone to therapy. I have a mentor that I've talked about stuff with these 3 people. And, I think I'm able to articulate it well and understand and have some resolve. But now that I can recognize, oh, these 3 people are also that was, to me, I thought that was over here. I didn't think that it had anything to do with me pursuing my dream and what I desire for my life and how I see myself. It was those were relationships that hurt me, that I'm healing from, but that's over here. Absolutely. I didn't realize that I'm taking it with me. And now I can, it's kind of been, I shared with Matt, I'm laughing kind of because I got so tired of myself where I was I would take steps forward and I'm like, I'm going to do it. And then I'm like, oh, I hit a wall and I'm like, maybe not, maybe I shouldn't. And then I step back and I couldn't figure out why I kept stepping forward and stepping back and doing this dance. And it was because I have been taking these 3 people with me on my dance. So now when I do this dance, I can look at it and I can go, you're hanging out with me today. And I'm letting you dance with me and I need to talk to it. And I want to tell it, I want to express something different than what I have because I've been ignoring it or denying it or not being aware of it. And that's been helpful because I'm thinking, I'm like, gosh, okay, this is going to be hard. Like you said, you became aware of it in 2016, but that it's a continual thing. And I'm so grateful that I can now at least see that they're part of this dance and I'm not going crazy and thinking what is wrong with me? Why do I keep having this blockage? And I'm like, oh, they're part of the blockage. I can talk to it.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, a lot of what we heard Paul teach in an earlier session about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and our programming, that our subconscious programming never really goes away. So when you kind of make those steps forward and you hit what he called the terror barrier, we bounce off of that and we tend to come back into safety because it's uncomfortable. And I think that for me, the resistance is getting past that uncomfortable feeling and being able to kind of break through and go, look, I've been here before. I've felt this before. And recognizing, kind of like you said something earlier about your inner critic. And one of the things I know, one of my earlier coaches had me actually name my inner critic. And so, my inner critic, I've named, and I wrote a letter to it. And I go back and I revisit that letter often when he starts to bring, a louder voice. And so I know that that's a resistance for me. And it's my inner voice that keeps coming back. And that's the resistance because it's trying to keep me safe. It's, my inner critic is trying to keep me safe. And yet there are certain points where I don't need to stay safe. I can go out and I can endeavor to live that life that I've imagined.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I love that you named. What's his name?
Sarge.
Yeah,
because he's always directing me. He's always he's giving me orders, and I had to pull rank. And so there's often times where I had to pull rank, and I have to be able to say, "Look, Sarge, I'm taking over here, and I'm in charge, and it's okay. You've done your job. You've kept me safe." But right now I don't need to be safe. I can actually explore. I can endeavor. Not only can I endeavor, I probably will fail and I might even get hurt, but that's okay. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail fast. I'm going to fail forward. I'm going to fail often, but it's part of the learning process. And I think for me, going through
turning point again from this perspective of actually teaching that Henry David Thoreau quote, like got me to think about my own journey and the fact that I was living it. Like even as I was teaching it, I was living it as I was teaching it, because every step of the way I experienced advancing confidently, endeavoring meaning I've failed. There are things that we had to kind of fail at and pick up at and pick up and move on and learn from. So for me, that, the 3 R's, it was really about the resistance for me and being able to overcome that resistance. And I really, to me too, the interesting thing was, as we went into the experiential component, I really recognized more things, and I tied those to the teachings more this time than I had in the past. And so it was really kind of interesting. So I don't know, your experience about that, but
sometimes I wonder where I was on the previous turning points.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of, and again, when you look at it through that different lens, I think I said to you many times, David, when we were out having our outdoor experience on the Saturday, of what was Saturday about for me, and seeing people push through their terror barriers, chasing their dreams. But actually, I saw so many examples of people physically advancing confidently, and for me, that was really the highlight of Saturday. Watching people that probably should have no right of being 60 feet up in the air, and, leaping off of a platform with a harness on, trying to reach a trapeze that's probably not reachable.
I know exactly who you're talking about too, because this particular individual was about a 74-year-old woman who is 30 feet in the air, jumping off of a platform, trying to reach a trapeze. So anyway,
and if you ever want a metaphor for life, in terms of, for someone who's just a little bit younger than 74, in terms of that, I don't think I can do this, I'm afraid. It's just like, whoa, hang on a minute. Let's think of that wonderful lady who we both know incredibly well. Straight up there, as if like a, as we would
like
say
a squirrel,
in the UK, a ferret up a drain pipe.
Yes.
And this platform's only 2 feet wide.
Yeah.
And with the greatest respect to the people that have gone before, they were all up there doing their breathing exercises and preparing and getting ready getting ready to go. This lady just doesn't even stop and takes breath. She gets to the platform, and we were both there, right, watching. Off she leaps. So what stops me? What stops me chasing my dream, when you can see an example of someone a little bit more senior in their years go and act and behave like that,
right?
And if you remember when she came down, it's like, what? Tell us a little bit about the experience. And her answer to that was that really wasn't a risk. I looked around and I saw who was around me, and I saw that everybody had my back, and I felt safe. I felt safe because I was harnessed, but I felt safe in this community. So there was no risk. I knew you had me. I knew you had my back.
And I think that's such a great lesson. I'd love to hear your perspective on this, Eryn, because I know community is really huge for you, but it makes a difference about who is around you. And I know this just from walking through the process of setting up the event and walking through all of the decisions. I said from the stage, look, I couldn't have done this without Andy and his wife, Charlotte, because we need community. We need people who have our back. And I think we've been fed a lie and a myth for so long that we're independent and that we can do it ourselves and we're self-made. And I just call BS on that, because I'm sorry, but we need community. And I think if there's anything that I learned personally going through this, was that. What about you, Eryn?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, I don't know, even from this weekend, like hearing how Paul said, he talked about expressing energy. It either expresses and expands, positive or negative. And I started thinking through, like, even who is within my community that expresses negative energy, that I may need to create some, boundaries with, because it affects what I'm trying to push through right now. Who of talk to themselves is affecting me. That's how powerful community is. And we don't even realize it. The people around us, whether they're expressing positive or negative energy, can also impact us. It rubs off on us, and I really do believe iron sharpens iron.
Yeah,
and
for
that's
sure.
why community is so important, to have people around you that can speak into you what they see that you may not see within yourselves, and then hold you up to a higher standard, and you desire that higher standard, not a self-righteous standard, but a good, healthy, righteous standard. And yeah, I think community is so important for that. But I've been reflecting on who around me do I need to maybe create a little bit more distance towards, that's expressing and expanding the negative energy. And I'm even noticing that within myself. Like, I'm like, okay, I could respond to this in two different ways. And I'm going to choose, and I get to choose, I get to do it. I don't have to, I get to. Get to choose negative or positive energy.
Yeah. So good. Gosh, it's so good. So I guess what's something else that stood out to you from the event, that if somebody in the future, if we do this event again, why should somebody actually push through their terror barrier and all of the excuses that come up in their mind, and the hurdles and the barriers? Why should they push past those and actually come to an event like this?
They have to believe within themselves that there's something that's bigger than them to pursue. Yeah, I believe. And if they believe that, I know that my life is meant for so much more, and I'm capable of so much more, then it's really just a why not go to this, because you do unlock that, and you learn. You learn that you are worthy of the dreams and desires that have been placed on your heart, and you are worthy to have those offerings to the world. And you are worthy of the type of community that believes in you and speaks into you. You're worthy to choose that, but I think it's a choice that that person has to make, to see that they are worthy, even if they don't believe it. They may not fully believe it, but they can kind of know that they are, or they desire to want to know that they are. I think that they can desire to want to know that they're worthy, but still struggle with it and show up and realize, oh my gosh, no, I'm worthy to dream this big.
Love that. Andy, how would you answer that question? What?
I think I'd try and build on what Eryn said, because I believe she's absolutely right. And my and on that would be, I genuinely believe a number of people in our community that we know quite well, and maybe some that I don't, they made an excuse not to come. And I choose that word deliberately, because I think probably what was behind the excuse not to come, which would have been, I've got family, or I haven't got the money, or I'm doing something different this weekend. What one step underneath that would be, I don't want to spend 3 days working on myself. That's the real reason why they didn't come. And what we've had the beauty of to hear Eryn speak into this morning and experience so much feedback, not only during the weekend but after the weekend, in terms of the people that did do it afraid, did sign up afraid, have spoken to, they're so glad that they did. And even almost live in the moment, my dear friend, Richard, who came, he experienced Thursday night and a teaching on Thursday night that he'd never heard before from Paul, and went to bed. And we're not saying anything here that's confidential, because he spoke into this in the room, right, on the following day, bless his heart. He went to bed on the Thursday night and rang his partner and said, I don't know what these guys are drinking, but I'm coming home tomorrow. but he got up on the Friday morning and went, no, perhaps I just need to stay a little bit longer and push through. And you and I know now that if we were able to, call Richard and say, look, would you do us a quick, testimonial of what you got out of the weekend?
Yeah.
it would bring tears to your eyes for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
And that's just one example. So I think, building on what Eryn said, you've got to do it afraid. You've got to do the work on yourself to maximize this God-given potential that we've all got.
Yeah. So speaking of like events like this and just kind of pushing past the excuses that we make for ourselves, I've done it as well. Matter of fact, I have a note in my prior Turning Point notebook that of the resistance that I faced, even going to the event back in 2016. But do these events really like make a difference? And if so, like what's required to make the things that you're learning a long-term change? What's involved in that? Eryn, I don't know if you have some thoughts on that.
I think you have to want it more than anybody else wanting it for you.
Yeah.
And you got to be willing to say no to the things that are going to be in the way of pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want that and you only want half of it, it's not going to be the same. So I think I had to get to the point. There was a time in my life where I hit rock bottom, and honestly, I was out of excuses and out of people to blame. And at the end of the day, I had to start looking at myself because I'm stuck with me, and I'm stuck with choosing what I'm not choosing. And that I had to choose it. It had to be my choice, and I had to want it. I had to really want it. So I think that there has to be a desire for you to want it, and to be, even maybe if you're even a little like, you sometimes I feel like you can struggle with this like imposter syndrome of like, oh my gosh, but like, I don't want to be arrogant by desiring a life like this, or I don't want to be arrogant and thinking that who am I to pursue this? Or you gotta still look past that voice and have curiosity that there's something on the other side of that voice, and then put your armor on and go hard through it.
I love that. Put your armor on and go hard through it. Oh my gosh. That's going to be on our quote card. Put your armor on and go hard through it. Oh my gosh. I love it.
Go hard through it. You just got to, okay?
Yeah.
Got to. Waste of time.
I love it.
Time for yourself.
Well, and I think too, so many people think that, well, is this egotistical? No, I mean, God gave us a purpose to be on this planet. He gave each one of us unique gifts and talents and abilities. And you're right, Eryn, we've got to go hard through it. And the thing that I will often share with business owners is that and Andy, you said this earlier, like we can't be stuck in one area and not be stuck in another area. So if you're a business owner and you're looking at your business and you think, golly, I've hit a plateau, or I'm really struggling here, you have to look within yourself. I mean, because the business is a reflection of the business owner, and we have to be able to take a look at ourselves. And so too often I know that it's too hard. It's hard. It's not too hard. It's hard sometimes to look inside of ourselves and actually take the time to do that and do the work. And put your armor on and go hard.
Yeah.
You're going to say something, Andy?
Yeah, I think it's another build on what Eryn said, because you have to do exactly. I believe that you have to do exactly what Eryn said, and I think you have to put your armor on, but then recognize, probably having put your armor on and started to advance confidently, that maybe in a few days or a few weeks or even a few months, something might pierce the armor.
Yeah.
And actually, and how do you repair or fix that? I think it's the people that you surround yourself with again, because actually, who you surround yourself with matters, as you said right at the top of this call, David. And those are the people that are going to be there to say, look, you've got this. You've got this. You're okay. You've had a bad day. You've had a bad week. Let's just not make that, 2 bad days or 2 bad weeks. And let's go again. And already we're seeing that in the power. We're seeing it's early, excited enthusiasm, energy, but inside, the Facebook group where people are declaring their I ams, the Turning Point Facebook group.
Yes,
you can see the enthusiasm and the excitement and the energy of people starting to believe in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But for some of us, that'll wane in a week or 10 days or 2 weeks time, and it's going to need one of us or one of them to pick me up, or to pick us up. So I think the and is the community again, because we're not built to go and take this journey on by ourselves. In my opinion, we were put on this planet for a purpose, but I also believe we weren't put on this planet to do it all by ourselves.
Totally agree.
I agree.
David, what's your immediate? I know you've had probably 48 hours now to reflect, and what's the experience? What's the one or two things that are at the top of your mind in terms of the reflection from the weekend for you?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is when I shared how the whole idea for Turning Point came. It was kind of like this flash or this little picture in my mind during my meditation time. And so I saw the teaching component with Paul and really sharing the stage with Paul and being a part of the transformation. But I didn't anticipate the expanse of the people, the effect that it was going to have on the people who were there. And I have to say this, that during the debrief on Saturday night from the experience, I was fighting back tears. I could fight back tears right now, thinking of and hearing the stories of the people who are sharing their takeaways. I didn't anticipate that. And it overwhelmed me. It really did. And I think that it reiterated again something that you said, and I know that Eryn, you totally believe in, is that's community, and that knowing that there are people in the community that we're kind of living in, that are sharing life together, that are helping each other, and that impact, I think, was the first thing that was top of mind for me. And I didn't anticipate that. I don't know why, but I just didn't anticipate that. And so that's probably the first thing. And I guess the second thing that upon my reflection is that, and I was actually telling my wife this morning. We went to coffee together, and I was living the Henry David Thoreau quote from last July 1st when I messaged you, Andy, about this event through the time that I was on stage. And when I was teaching it, you know how sometimes you can have these simultaneous thoughts. I was like teaching it, but on one level I'm going, David, you lived this. And if one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams and lives the life they've imagined, they will meet with success unexpected in common hours. And like all of that came together for me at that moment and at that event, because if one, who me? Why me? That question that you talked about, Eryn, like, look, it's just me. Well, it is me. If one advances confidently, then I can live the life I've imagined. And it really just kind of came together for me. So those are kind of two of my top of mind reflections, is that even though we sometimes we go to these events or we see these quotes, when we put them into practice and we actually get outside of our comfort zone. For the last 9 months, I've been routinely outside of my comfort zone, except when I'm sleeping. I'm outside of my comfort zone, and it's like, man, it's so good. It's so good. It's so scary sometimes, but it's so good. So I don't know. That's the thing that came to my mind. Eryn, I wanted to ask you, because I know that since the weekend you've had some time to reflect, and I'd love to just kind of get your thoughts on what are some other things maybe that you want to share. I know you've got a big community, and you've kind of been asking some things on your social media. I just love to be able to hear what some of the things are that people have either asked you, or what your thoughts are on those things that they've asked you, or even just your reflections. I know that's kind of broad, but I'll just kind of turn the mic to you for a sec.
Yes. No, that's good. I did post on Instagram. I was like, what do you want to know? And I was really surprised by some of the responses. So I'll share a few of the responses, and then maybe we can unpack some of them.
Yeah, cool.
Somebody said, I said, what is your challenge right now that you want to learn from and overcome? Somebody said second guessing dreams and wanting to know goals versus realities.
Mm.
Another person said, how do I pursue my passion and know it's not arrogance or ego, which is what we talked on.
Yeah.
Do events and conferences really make a long-term impact?
Mm-hmm.
Letting small things go and not allowing them to disrupt my peace. It was another one. And I letting small things go, not allowing them to disrupt my peace. I think that our energy is so important as we pursue that, like we talked about it before, like expands and it expresses, or expresses it. Yeah, expands and then expresses.
Yeah.
Positive or negative. And there's such a beauty in being able to own your own energy and acknowledge somebody else's. I think that is so empowering when you can go, that's something that you are wanting to expand and express on, but that's not something I want to expand and express on. And I'm going to protect my inner peace for that reason, because that is not for me to own. That's for you to own. That I don't know why that stuck with me so much, but I loved that when Paul talked about that. It just gave me tools. And again, it's like that other question, do events like these have a long-term impact? I now have tools and verbiage that I did not have before that equips me for when I put on my armor and I go hard and through,
I love that. Yes. I love it.
I now got the tools and I have the verbiage to be able to talk to myself. And the whole arrogance, ego thing, like I struggle with that a lot. It's that terror barrier that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
One of the terror barriers that I struggled with that I noticed on the obstacle course was that, and David, you and I have joked a lot about it. It's so bizarre, Andy. I realized I wasn't scared of the actual obstacle. Like I was not scared of the actual, like climbing up the tree and jumping off the trapeze, which I wanted to do. I wasn't able to do it, but I wanted to do it. We just ran out of time. But then the other one where it was like, we're walking, I don't know how far up we are, 40, 50, 60 feet, something like that. Yeah. And it's like cables that we're walking across. And, you just have this like rope holding on to this thing. And I'm walking across. I'm not scared of the height at all. I was not scared. What I was nervous about was missing following the instructions from the instructor. That's what I was scared of, which I've been still thinking about that, David. I'm like,
I think that's great.
Why is it that that's the thing I was scared of? Was like, why is that? And I realized I'm like, that's my terror barrier for other stuff, like pursuing So Worth Loving. It is, I'm scared to pursue something and not get it right. And that there is this secret instruction manual that I've missed or that I haven't read or that I'm not smart enough or, whatever it may be that I, struggle with internally, that I'm like, I could mess it up because I didn't do my due diligence. I think that's where I was the most nervous, was like, Matt laughed because I was just listening so intently on like the instructor would say. And then like I would get it wrong, because I didn't follow the instructions properly. Because I know that's what I do. I don't read instructions. Like I'm not actually somebody that reads it. So I think I get anxiety to follow the rules because I know I don't do it well. So I don't know. It was just interesting. What do y'all think about that? That was like what I recognized in my terror barrier talk.
Yeah, I think that, Andy, I'll let you jump in there because I've got thoughts, but I'll let you jump in.
I think it's probably, coming to terms with the person that you are. That's your personality profile, dare we say. That's, and I think that's your level of awareness, being heightened in terms of understanding, and then as a result of that, becoming really comfortable with, easier said than done, right? But getting really comfortable with that personality type that you are, and knowing that it comes with a bunch and a bundle of strengths, but it'll also it potentially, if you're not aware of it and you are aware of it, it can catch you out. So if you're not an instruction reader, be aware that you might put the IKEA flat pack furniture together with the leg in the wrong place. just saying that I might have done that previously. Whilst Charlie, my wife, is just waiting there with would you like the instructions now?
Right.
Okay, I would, after we've got 3/4 of the way through it. So I think it's being aware, but just being really aware of the type of person that you are, and being more and more comfortable with it, and knowing that as we advance confidently, we're going to screw up from time to time, right? And 9 times out of 10, that's okay. It's not a catastrophe. It's not the end of the world.
It's not fatal.
We've made a mistake. It's like, okay, what did we do? And what I need to make sure that I don't do again.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that, it's so funny, Eryn, that you mentioned that, because I think I have up until now been had a mindset of perfection. Like I needed to be seen as perfect. I needed to be, all of these things that when I look at the quote, and I even taught this, like endeavoring means you're going to fail. I'm going to fail. And I got to be okay with that. And so it's just going ahead anyway and doing it anyway. That's been a hard thing for me. I mean, it really has, because I've had this programming that you need to do it right, David. You need to be perfect. You need to, be seen as, and people know that, we're not all perfect. And so it's okay. It's okay. And so endeavoring is going to mean failing, and it's going to mean learning from it, and, understanding. And I think to Andy's point, understanding my personality and having an awareness of that has been helpful, because then I can use the people around me to help me where I'm not strong. I mean, to be honest, I said it before, this event would not have taken place without Andy and Charlie, because the detail parts were like, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I think that's something that I learned too. I wanted to talk about, because you asked about, or you said one of the things that somebody said on social media, like, do these events make long-term change, and do they really, are sustain? I'm kind of paraphrasing. Do they create sustainable change? And I think it depends, but it depends on you. I mean, it depends on me. I mean, it depends on how I approach it and how I go into it. If I just go in and I want to take notes and I'm all in my head and it's all intellectual, then I don't think so. I mean, I think I can go back to my notes and I can see it intellectually, but that's my thinking mind. And, we talked about the thinking mind and the emotional mind, the subconscious mind. I think that's where we have to change. And that's where, and you said it best, Eryn. I mean, you've got the tools. We have the tools to be able to make the change now in that subconscious mind, so that we can change and we can, make that long-term impact. And so I think it all depends on the individual. But if you go into it knowing that you're going to get the tools to be able to do it, and then, and now's where the hard work happens, right? It's in the, who do I need to be now? Who do I need to become?
Sure.
In the becoming.
That's so good.
Yeah. Well, I know we're wrapping up against our stop time here. Eryn, are there any things that you would like to share with the audience that we haven't talked about yet, that you really wanted to make sure that you just shared about your experience and really just kind of being in that growth space that you were in and still are in?
I think I would just share with somebody that's listening right now that doesn't feel maybe like they have what it takes, or they're missing something within themselves. We all can find that peace. we could all find something that we're missing, that we feel like we're not qualified for. Every single person that attended, I bet you, has a list that they've made at one point in their life that they've had to break off, that told them that they weren't good enough, weren't worthy of it, and unqualified for it. And I just want to encourage the person listening that they absolutely are. I struggled with that in regards to just my own dream that I have with So Worth Loving, and really going after it and confidently speaking again that I am pursuing it. Like, that is hard, considering my business is called So Worth Loving, and I've taken a back seat for a little while as I've processed some personal stuff with a divorce and debt and all this stuff that I've had to own. But stepping back in, I mean, I felt like, I don't think I'm qualified anymore. I think I'm a has-been. I said that to one of my mentors, and she goes, "You're 35." And I said, I know. But when I started it, I was 25, and I saw lots of peaks, but then I experienced lots of valleys. And this retreat reminded me that the valleys that I've been in equip me to pursue what it is that I want, because I'm stronger now, and I'm gonna fail. I have failed. So the fact that like I pursue So Worth Loving now, well, I've already failed it once, like in my mind, like I'm like, I already failed. Like Paul talked about that. He was like, you're gonna probably fail an idea that is brand new. Yep. And you learn from it. And I'm learning from it. And so whoever's listening, if they feel that they're just done, or they need to hang something up, but there's this longing, they may not need to. They just need to recognize you failed. Okay, move on. Go for it. You're worthy of that. You have value to offer to the world, and the world needs you. We need people like that in this world that contribute that way. So that's what I would say.
Go hard through it.
Go hard through it. I'm going to make a t-shirt that says that.
I love it. I would buy that t-shirt. Andy, what's maybe one thing you want to wrap up with?
As Paul would say, what if you fail? What if I fail? Oh, you're so cute. What if you fail?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
I was hearing him say the exact same thing. Oh, you're so cute. Of course you're going to fail.
It's a necessary part of the journey, right? I think in answer to your question, David, I think, that how I would wrap it up is, we're worth it as individuals. Each and every one of us is worth it. We're worth pursuing our dreams. We were put on this earth with God-given talents and abilities. And anybody listening to this, who's not living into their potential for whatever reason, encourage them to start to think into it. If we think about the metaphor that we had, all together, late into Saturday night, without getting too somber, none of us know how much time we've got left. We don't know whether we've got a day, whether we've got a month, whether we've got a year, or we've got another 60 or 70 years. We just don't know, right?
Yeah.
And on that premise, that means that we need to go out and live into our purpose and live into our passion and our potential each and every day. And if you're stuck and you're not sure how to do that, take the next step and go and speak to someone that can help and support you. It doesn't have to be any of us on this podcast or any of our community. Go and find someone that can just help you advance confidently.
Love that, Andy. So good. So good. Yeah. And I think last thing I will say is that if you're listening to this and you're questioning, am I worthy? And I have to just echo what Eryn, has said, and really what her mission is all about is, yes, you are worthy. You are worth it, and you are worthy. And God resourced you. He put you on this planet for a reason, and you are worth it. And so go out and live your life. Go out and live your life in a way that you go hard through it.
That's right. You're going to fail.
You're going to fail. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for the listeners, kind of just allowing us to share the journey through, through Turning Point, through just this growth path. And I'm really appreciative to both of you for your time.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Eryn.
Well, I think that was just a great episode and such a great conversation. I'll just share a couple of my key takeaways with you. And then what I'd really love for you to do is to reach out to me and shoot me a note. What are your takeaways? What did you hear from Eryn and Andy as we had this conversation just around growth and their takeaways from Turning Point? Let me know. So the first thing that I heard was that really who you learn from makes a difference. And we want to make sure that who we're learning from has been through the things that they're teaching. We also want to make sure that they have the credibility and the experience to be able to share with us and help us make it through the dreams that we have and advance confidently in the direction of our dreams. And that's the other thing that we talked about, and I'll just share it here, is the text from Henry David Thoreau, because at Turning Point, this is the component that I taught from, actually Andy and I taught from. So that quote goes like this: "If one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavors to live the life they've imagined, they will meet with success unexpected in common hours." And really, that whole quote, I basically took an hour and unpacked it. And there's so much there, so I'm not going to unpack it here. But it's something that as you look at that quote, there is so much richness to it. And just advancing confidently in the direction of your dreams takes really being able to talk to our inner critic and teaching us to be able to put that inner critic in its place. And really, the other part that came out from what Eryn learned was just handling the 3 R's: the resentment, the restriction, and the revenge. And being able to make taking care of those things and diving into those things a habit. The other thing I think that Eryn said was really important is that the concept of energy expressing and expanding. And other people's energy rubs off on us. And so it really matters who we spend time with. And so we have to ask ourselves the question: who do I need to spend more time around? Who do I need to spend less time around? And then make those changes appropriately. I loved what Eryn said, that we just need to put our armor on and go hard through it. I think oftentimes we think that when we do certain things or we have a goal or a dream, that it's just going to be smooth sailing. And it's far from that. We have to be able to be willing to do the hard things and go through some hard things. And so put your armor on and just go hard through it. The other thing I think is really important for you to realize is that events like this do make a long-term difference if you make a conscious effort to change out your programming. Events like this give us new tools. They give us new language, new awareness to handle the challenges that we have to go hard through. And so it really depends on me if I am going to have an event like this make a difference. And so endeavoring means that we've got to be able to make a conscious effort to change. And endeavoring also means that we may fail. We likely are going to fail. And so we need to learn from that failure, and that we need to just recognize that we can go through those failures and those hard times and just advance confidently through it. Now, on the next episode, you're not going to want to miss the 2 business owners that we have on the next episode. You're going to meet Katie and Stephen Hyatt, and they're just amazing individuals. They are a husband and wife team, but you're going to really enjoy hearing their story and their growth journey. So make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss it. So let's live with intention today. Let's live into our passion. Let's advance confidently in the direction of our dreams. So thanks for tuning in today. I hope this has been helpful for you. And until next time, remain in that growth space and be well.